Good morning, everybody. Thanks for joining me here today. Manitoba is home to an incredible array of artists, creators, producers that through their work have helped us to honor our past, to reflect on our diversity, to celebrate who we are and what the future holds for our fortunate part of the world. Manitoba's vibrant arts and culture community is showcased through hundreds of festivals, of concerts, fairs, community events that take place across our province each year apart from during the pandemic. Some of my favorite memories as a kid were the annual event in Portage-la-Prairie, the Music and Arts Festival. And for a lot of us, this was a chance to get up on stage and play a musical instrument. In my case, it was a piano, or sing, or recite, and do various things. That was our first experience to prepare extensively and to then perform in front of a group of people. I can remember with great nervousness my number of years in that Music and Arts Festival, and I remember those things and know now as an adult that those were formative experiences for me, that they were an opportunity for me to learn and to grow as a person. And to learn, I think, also and appreciate the work of the number of people who made that event and many, many others possible. The parents and the teachers and the instructors, but also the volunteers who created that memory for us as young people. We're deprived of this during COVID. Many of these events and others like them have not been able to take place, and that's too bad because those are important events in shaping the lives of all of us and enriching the lives of all of us. Last summer, instead of being united in the celebration of our 150th anniversary, we were being safe apart. And we were united, nevertheless, in the fight against COVID. And that fight will continue for some time yet, as it must. This is an industry that's been affected more than most, and often described actually as the first to close and the last to open, because, of course, in many cases this involves group settings. Manitoba's arts and cultural sector has been drastically impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic. Public health restrictions that are necessary to protect Manitobans have very, very significantly limited the ability of this sector to do what it does best: bring people together to enjoy a shared experience. From here and from abroad. Think of your favorite festival and realize that, of course, we've been deprived of that opportunity for some time now. And the chance to get together not only as individuals but as a group to celebrate with song, with art, with dance, with theater, and much, much more. So as long as there's a need for public health restrictions, specifically around things like travel and crowd size, the arts and cultural sector of our province is going to continue to struggle. And it's estimated to be one of the last sectors that will have the ability to fully recover. And so today, in appreciation and recognition of that sector, I am very pleased to announce a $6 million program for the creation of funds that will support the sustainability, the resiliency, and the recovery of Manitoba's arts and culture sector in our province. Aujourd'hui, nous sommes heureux d'annoncer $6 millions pour la création de fonds pour soutenir la durabilité, la résilience et le rétablissement du secteur des arts et de la culture de Manitoba aussi. The new arts and culture sustainability funds will be administered, and thank you to them, by the Manitoba Arts Council and Manitoba Film and Music. $6 million will be allocated to those organizations to support arts and heritage organizations. There will also be, as part of this, a $250,000 dedicated grant specifically to support professional artists. And we'll also be, through these programs, supporting the music industries, artists, recording artists, producers, studios, and more. Arts and heritage organizations such as museums, galleries, festivals, cultural facilities, community arts, book publishing, artists and musical groups will be eligible for financial support. And I should emphasize, even if they have qualified for previous provincial or federal financial support programs. The funds, however, will be allocated by the Arts Council and other adjudicators on the basis of those who most need the support and those who have experienced the greatest barriers as a consequence of COVID, and to other barriers also to other sources of funding. In other words, we're going to try to help those who are most in need. Manitoba's arts and culture organizations play a tremendously significant role in the health and well-being of Manitobans and their communities. They have throughout our history. They will continue to, and our hope is that while they contribute to the growth of our economy and fostering the development of tomorrow's creative minds, this support will assist them in transitioning through what are indeed challenging times for all of us. We all look forward to the day when we can all safely get back together with friends, with family, and take in a concert, take in a play, festival, a community fair. But until then, as a government, as we have throughout this pandemic, we will continue to work side by side with Manitoba's businesses, with our nonprofits, with our charities, with our community organizations to support them through this challenging and unprecedented time with the most generous support programs in the country of Canada. We're proud to offer those programs to help bridge Manitobans through. We know it will not make up for the hardships that COVID has put on our organizations, on us as individuals, and our families, but we do this with a sincere desire to help people bridge through this challenging time and emerge victorious. As Manitobans have throughout our history in response to the challenges that we've been presented with, we know that we will do that again. We'll come out of COVID together. We'll beat this thing. Thank you. Look forward to your questions.
Thank you, Mr. Premier. A reminder to our reporters on the line, you will have one preliminary and one follow-up question. Up first this morning from the Brandon Sun, Colin.
Morning, Mr. Premier.
Morning, Colin.
Here in Brandon, the Provincial Exhibition of Manitoba is an important institution. Would it qualify for this funds under the festival category?
My understanding is it would, Colin, and I actually was just able to record a virtual message in support of your winter fair. I have incredible memories going with my father when I was a young boy and watching the Clydesdale teams come into the stadium and shake the stands. It's something that's created a memory. That event has created such great memories for so many people, not just in Manitoba or rural Manitoba, but from elsewhere, I'm told, as well. So we do wish that group and all our cultural organizations the very best in the future.
On a different topic, I know you've taken issue with the federal carbon tax before. What are your feelings on the Supreme Court of Canada upholding the carbon tax in their ruling this morning?
Well, as you know, our appeal is different and based on different grounds, but we'll await a decision on Manitoba's reference. I think two things. It reaffirms that this is a national issue, an international issue that needs to be addressed. And I think it also reaffirms very clearly that the federal government doesn't have an unfettered right to tell provinces how to address it. We have a Made in Manitoba plan. Our plan is more stringent than many of the other provinces that the federal government said could go ahead with theirs. And Manitoba's green plan will work best if we have Manitobans working at it together as we did when we developed it. So we're optimistic with the decision and the wording in it that we have a case to make, and we're looking forward to hearing the the court rule on our own case, because we'd like to get back to our Manitoba approach. We're continuing with a number of aspects of it, of course, right now, but in terms of the carbon pricing side, which was the focus of this, we believe that our level approach is better than the rising approach the federal government's imposed on us.
From CJOB, Sam.
No questions today, thank you.
Okay, from the Winnipeg Sun, Josh.
Good morning, Premier. This is Josh Aldridge with the Winnipeg Sun. When we look at this fund and these financial supports for the arts community, are you able to break down how much each grant would be, or each support going out to individuals or larger organizations, or is that all going to completely be up to the two organizations that are going to be kind of handing the funds out?
Yeah, beyond the criterial aspects that I mentioned, Josh, about taking into account the impacts, obviously, and the availability of other funds as you consider, the Arts Council would be the adjudicator here. But I would mention, and I didn't reference before, how important the cultural sector is to our provincial economy globally. We're talking here about an industry that provides about $1.5 billion of value to our economy, and that provides over 21,000 jobs. So this is not a small sector. As much as it's comprised of many pieces, and hundreds or thousands of different pieces, all taken all together, this is an enormously important sector for our province and for our economy going forward. And I would add, of course, that it adds to the quality of life. This industry adds so much to the quality of life of the people of Manitoba, with the entertainment benefits, as an example, the developmental opportunities for youth. It's an important industry, and I'm glad that we're able to offer this support today.
Okay, my follow-up, looking at the Supreme Court of Canada decision, when are you guys expecting your decision to come forward in your case, and especially looking ahead to the carbon tax going up to $170 per ton? Is there how much more importance is derived when we see that escalation going up that high now, potentially, with the carbon tax? Yeah,
well, our original plan, and it was developed over significant months, and in fact over a year and a half, with the input of thousands of Manitobans, was a very detailed plan, outlined pillars of efforts. We're proceeding with most of those programs are in action or in the final stages of development and implementation. So what we were concerned about, because we are a rural and northern province as well, and our economy significantly depends on participants that would be profoundly hurt by the federal government's approach versus, say, a province which centers on an urban economy more so, that this was a damaging way to go about meeting the goals of addressing climate change. Our position remains the same. The federal government's exempted other provinces, allowed their plans to go forward that are less stringent than ours, and we don't think that's fair. Also, the federal government has given us zero credit for the billions of dollars that we have been forced to borrow to invest in our green economy, and in large part hydro. Now, hydro was built by the previous government with the intention of satisfying American markets that simply aren't coming to the foreground. So we're focusing on developing Canadian markets, like the market in Saskatchewan that was discussed somewhat yesterday. But the fact remains that we've invested literally billions and billions of dollars in hydro, and the federal government gives us $0 credit for having done so. And this, we think, is also unfair. So this is the basis of our appeal, in part, to the Supreme Court, and we'll look forward to a decision in due course. Of course, they'll determine the schedule. I don't want to predict. I would hope in the next few months that we would learn of their decision. But they did say in their decision on the rendered in the last few hours that the federal government does not have an unfettered right to impose its own plan, its will on provinces, and specifically, I'll read you the quote, does not have an unfettered right to impose its will on provinces that have demonstrated a commitment, have developed their own plan, and are ready to implement it. Well, Manitoba has demonstrated a commitment. We have developed our own plan, and we are implementing it. So we believe that the federal government should not have the right to jump over top of what Manitobans have worked so hard on. And we also believe that thinking globally is important, but acting locally is the key to making this work. And so the more Manitobans that embrace this challenge, the better chance we have of succeeding. And we believe our plan, being developed by Manitobans, will help us to succeed more rapidly than would one imposed from Ottawa.
From CBC Manitoba, Ian.
Good morning, Premier. Ian Frey, CBC. Just on today's announcement here on the funding for Arts and Culture Group, is there an estimate in terms of, I guess, how many groups or organizations could get this money and how much money they could each receive?
And I can't, I want the Arts Council to have the responsibility for determining this. They're in a way better position because they understand the nature, the intricacies of the arts community far better than the Premier does. So we'll trust them to make those decisions, and I don't want to speculate on what their ultimate allocation will be. But we all look forward to being able to see our arts groups. This is in addition, I should mention, to the bridge programs that we offered. So many of these organizations and individuals have received bridge support already. But this is in addition to that. But we do want to see them through so that we can emerge out of this with a strong and vibrant arts and cultural community.
Thank you. And last year, you proposed another sort of made in Manitoba carbon tax, along with the PST cut that was pulled back when the pandemic hit us. Is there an interest on your end in bringing back a Manitoba-made carbon tax?
Yeah, absolutely. Our proposal involves a flat like the Prairie Horizon carbon levy. That's what we wanted to do. We were ready to do it. It took a lot of criticism for this at the time, but the fact is that it would have been flat and level, and it would have been lower than it is now, but higher than it was then, if you follow me. So we were ready to do it that way rather than see it go up. The federal government said it was going to go 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. We said, well, we'd like to do it 25 flat. Let's do it that way. We thought that was better, more predictable for small business, more predictable for consumers, a better way for us to attract investment to our province than an accelerating tax that was growing. And we still maintain that that's the better design, and that's the one that we wanted to go with. Since then, the federal government said, well, we're now going to take it higher, but that wasn't the plan at the time. Look, we had, I think, a very good, well-developed, thought-through plan at the start. Manitobans designed it. I'm proud of the work they did. You're never going to please everybody. This is an environmental topic, and you're going to have people all over the map. But the fact remains that we here are very results-oriented people, and we want something that works. To me, a good comparison, Ian, might be our response to the pandemic. Manitobans shared in the planning. We involved them. Engage MB has had well over 100,000 Manitobans participate. We designed our plans, of course, led by health experts, but we involved Manitobans in the development of those plans because the implementation of health orders is what matters. It's not the design of the order, it's the willingness to do it. So you see, we were able to bend the curve because we involved Manitobans. Same thing with environmental issues. You can have all the plans you want. The previous NDP government had tons of plans, none of them worked. They don't work unless you encourage Manitobans to be involved in them, and this is what we're engaged in doing, and what we'll continue to do because we believe climate change is real, has to be addressed, and can best be addressed if all of us take part, if all of us take our responsibilities seriously. And that doesn't work as well when Ottawa tells us what to do as it does when we work on a plan that we designed ourselves. And we designed a good plan, practical plan, and we're acting on much of it. But this carbon tax thing, it's not right when you're letting others off the hook, in Eastern Canada, for example, and letting them do their plans, which aren't working, will not work as well as our own, but not respecting Manitoba's plan. Designed by Manitobans, and we're serious about it. So, obviously I hope we win the court case, and then we can proceed with other aspects of our plan that I think will work better for Manitoba citizens and better for our environment.
From the Canadian Press, Steve.
Hi, Premier. Just over a year ago, you were in Brandon to pitch your idea of a made in Manitoba, a new made in Manitoba carbon tax. You wouldn't say what level you're considering. You said it would exempt things like grain drying. So what level are you pitching, and what makes you think it would be acceptable to Ottawa?
Well, what the Supreme Court says, frankly, Steve, is that it doesn't have to be acceptable to Ottawa. Ottawa has to make the case that our plan isn't as stringent as the one that they want to impose, and it is. It's actually more stringent than theirs, the one they originally proposed when we launched the court action. Now, if they're making changes to it, that's their call. The fact of the matter remains our court case is based on the facts as they were at the time. We said flat carbon levy, 1 page out of a more than 60-page Made in Manitoba green strategy. Okay, so let's be clear. It isn't all about the carbon tax. Ottawa is making it about the carbon tax. It's not about the carbon tax. It's about a lot more things than that. And we have already designed and are implementing many, many aspects of our Made in Manitoba Climate and Green Plan that are more stringent than Ottawa's imposed plan. My point is that what will work better is to respect locally made design plans as part of a larger strategy. If the federal government says we're not hitting their criteria, that's one thing. But our analysis shows that we are. And so, again, I'm hopeful that Manitoba's, I guess, the last court appeal, the last chance for provinces to be able to prevail on Ottawa, that we have a plan and we want to act on it.
But while your plan was multiple pages and dealt with things other than the carbon tax, today's ruling from the highest court in the country focuses on the carbon tax. So what price point are you pitching? What can you tell Manitobans about what price point you're pitching and why it might work?
Well, we were prepared and we had negotiated with Ottawa extensively, worked very, very carefully and hard on this on a flat 25. We proposed 20 initially. We moved up to 25 to comply, we thought, with an even more stringent requirement. They've let other plans go in Maritimes and Quebec that are less stringent. They've approved them. Fine, you're okay. But Manitoba's, they said no. For some reason, they said no. We don't agree with their logic. Here's what the federal government, here's what the court said. The federal government cannot simply impose minimum national standards over any area of provincial jurisdiction. It does not provide parliamentary jurisdiction to regulate GHG emissions generally, or even the detailed regulation of all aspects of greenhouse gas pricing. And the court stated that any decision to list a province is open to judicial review to ensure it is consistent with the Act's purpose. So, while the court confirmed that the federal government has a role to maintain minimum national standards of stringency, the court also emphasized the importance of provincial jurisdiction over this area. In other words, the federal government has the right to impose a plan where none exists, but they don't have the right, based on my interpretation of these rulings, they don't have the right to impose a plan where one exists that is more stringent than the one they're proposing. And so our case is made that we have an excellent plan designed by Manitobans that we believe can work, and I would most certainly say that I hope that we can prevail in the court decision that is coming in the next few months.
From CTV Winnipeg, John.
Good morning, Mr. Premier. John Hendricks from CTV. I'm just wondering, for outdoor festivals that may be able to go forward but perhaps face some higher costs due to COVID, would they be allowed to apply for funding under this new arts program?
Deliberately, John left the parameters of delivery to the program fairly broadly to allow the Arts Council to use their judgment and to make decisions that are fair and defensible in respect of the allocation of these funds. But putting these funds there and available, I think, is going to enable some good needed support for a lot of the organizations that are out there, whether it's outdoor festivals or some of the ones that, we know that indoor gatherings are probably further along, especially larger gatherings. So for some of those groups, they will have case to make as well. But the Arts Council will make those decisions, John.
Okay, thank you for that. I also wanted to ask you one question just about the plan to perhaps increase private liquor sales. I'm just wondering if you have any concerns that this could negatively affect the government-owned Manitoba Liquor Mart.
Well, I'm mostly concerned about making sure that, and I have great respect for lots of friends that work in the liquor marts of our province. I occasionally meet them at their place of work, and I can tell you they do a great job. I have great respect for them. But it's customers that are at the forefront, and that's what my friends who work in those liquor marts will tell you too. It's customer service. That's what makes our liquor marts good places to go, and that's what makes people want to shop there. But to suggest that we should just say that no one can go to a corner grocery store and pick up a bottle of wine, I don't think is the right approach. So in a lot of parts of our country, people are free to be able to walk down the street, not drive, and that's good for the environment. We're back on that, I guess. But, you know, for lots of people, I think will want to see additional options available to them. If we can have more customer choice, better selection, maybe even some better prices too, that's a good thing for the customer. So customer comes first, and we have to be open-minded to offering the best services to our customer, and our customer is Manitobans.
From City News, Mike.
Good morning, Mr. Premier. Mike Albanese from City News. Apologies if you've been asked this on a different day, but just a comment on the president and CEO of Cineplex saying that they're extremely frustrated and disappointed that both Alberta and Manitoba are keeping cinemas closed. Just any thoughts on that, and have you and Dr. Roussin spoke about a potential reopening time frame?
Yeah, well, I'm a film buff, and I love my movie theater experience, and that's, I think, pretty known by those who know me. So, you know, I'm as frustrated as anybody that we can't get back into the theaters. I think the challenge, of course, as Dr. Roussin has outlined numerous times, is indoor gatherings give COVID a chance to spread, and reducing our contact numbers is really key. That's what Manitobans have been able to do to bend the curve of COVID. Now we've got the variant situation. You got a higher risk situation there that allows for a even more rapid multiplier effect, if I could use that phrase. So the likelihood of us getting many people together in a small group setting or in a mid-sized group setting fairly soon is probably less than other restrictions that we might lift. That being said, I know that the cinema owners are anxious to reopen, and I know that they'll do their absolute best to clean the facility and make sure you're as safe as you possibly can be. So it's a tough act, balancing act, to address these issues, but, you know, we're erring on the side of caution, and when you look around and you see the variant cases springing up near us in Ontario and Saskatchewan on either side, I think maybe caution's going to continue to be the order of the day for at least a little while yet, until we can get vaccines here and get them into the arms of people.
And I don't have a follow-up question. Thank you.
From the Winnipeg Free Press, Cheemer.
Good morning, Premier Pallister. This is Timur Durrani, economics reporter with the Winnipeg Free Press. Premier, independent business owners and commerce stakeholders are incredibly worried with your government's plans for economic recovery. They've told us repeatedly that certain types of businesses, like retailers, are being held to a higher standard of allowances within pandemic protocols. My first question is, what is your response to the comment that allowing increased capacity as of this week within retail stores for weddings and at churches is a political decision and not one based necessarily on epidemiological science or economic concerns?
That's a groundless assertion.
My second question is, what's the future game plan here for businesses like business centers and business travel? Could you tell us about how easing restrictions around that is being navigated by your government?
We continue to be in constant focus on protecting the vulnerable in our province, and we'll continue to stay focused on that. And we will continue to make sure that we monitor not only the situation in Manitoba but elsewhere in respect of things like emerging variants and the risk factors associated with them.
Our final reporter this morning, Mr. Premier, from Global News, Brittany.
Good morning, Mr. Premier. It's Brittany from Global News. You've
Hi,
kind of
Brittany.
touched on it already, but I really just wanted to know, how confident are you with the appeal case that Manitoba has on the carbon tax?
Well, Brittany, I learned a long time ago that what seems common sense to most people isn't necessarily what happens in a court. And so I'll only say that I'm very hopeful. I know how hard we worked as a government, and I know how hard literally thousands of people in Manitoba worked to build our green plan. And I know that it would work better if it was respected, because Manitobans, I think, would buy into it, and they'd act more readily, locally, to do all the things they could to support it than they would if it was imposed from Ottawa. But ultimately, the court is the court. We'll have to accept the court's decision. I think we've made a compelling case, a better case, frankly, I would have to say, than our other provincial counterparts have made, because we demonstrated, we stepped up, and we demonstrated we were ready to act on climate change and ready to do a carbon tax and took the political hit for it, quite frankly, from many people. And we did that because we felt that a Made in Manitoba plan and an action plan could work, and Manitobans, I believe, want to do their part to make sure that this beautiful province and this world are better when we leave it than we found it. So, I'm hopeful, but again, they're judges in a court of law, and they're gonna think the way they think, and we'll see what they decide.
Thank you. And I guess, does the recent ruling make you lose any faith in the case that you have before the courts right now?
No, it actually reinforces our case in many ways, Brittany. And when you journalists that are on this call and others read it, I think you'll see that. It really makes it very clear that this is provincial jurisdiction and that the federal government really doesn't have an unfettered right to impose itself on this area. But I would also make it very clear, I applaud the federal government's willingness to take action on climate change. What I deplore is their unwillingness to support others like us in Manitoba who are taking action on climate change, who are sincerely wanting to make the world cleaner and better and stronger for those who come after us. So I don't think that imposing Ottawa's will on Manitobans, when we are green and proud of it and we want to do more, and we have so many good groups and individuals who are stepping up, advocating for so many aspects of improving our environment, and respectfully, moving forward with that advocacy, but also taking actions which will help. I think that those people should be respected through this process. We're not always of one mind on what's the best plan, that's for sure. We learned that through the development of our strategy here. But it is a more stringent plan with more stringent requirements and actions and measurements than any other plan provincially, and certainly more than the federal government's so-called backstop plan, which they imposed on us. So I think we have a better plan. I'm confident it'll work better because Manitobans will work better at it because it comes from us, and I'm sincerely hopeful. So we're the last stand, I guess, if you want to put it that way, but I'm hopeful that we're making the right arguments for the right reason, and I'm hopeful we can prevail. So wind it up just by saying thanks to everybody. Good luck to our curlers at the National Mixed Curling Championship. 3 of the 4 people that are involved still, and the finalists this evening, are from Manitoba, the home of the best curlers on the planet. Thank you.